World where love often takes a back seat to necessity, Sarah found herself at a crossroads. With her family facing financial ruin, she made a heart-wrenching decision to marry a man she barely knew. The man, Ethan, was charming and enigmatic, but Sarah had no idea that beneath his polished exterior lay a secret that would change her life forever. As she walked down the aisle, her heart was heavy with the weight of her family's struggles, but she hoped that this union would bring them the stability they desperately needed. Little did she know, the truth about Ethan's wealth and the life he led would unravel in ways she could never have imagined. What started as a sacrifice for her family would soon turn into a journey of self-discovery, love, and unexpected revelations. As the wedding bells rang, Sarah felt a mix of hope and trepidation, unaware that her life was about to take a dramatic turn. Would she find happiness in this unexpected marriage, or would the secrets lurking in the shadows threaten to tear her world apart? Sarah Thompson had always been the responsible one in her family. As the eldest daughter, she had taken on the role of caretaker, ensuring her younger siblings had everything they needed. But when her father lost his job and her mother fell ill, the weight of the world seemed to rest on her shoulders. Bills piled up and the threat of losing their home loomed large. Desperate times called for desperate measures, and Sarah found herself contemplating a decision that would change her life forever. Ethan Carter was a man of mystery. He was handsome, with dark hair and piercing blue eyes that seemed to hold secrets of their own. Sarah had met him at a charity event where he had been the guest of honor. He was charismatic and charming, effortlessly drawing people into his orbit. But Sarah had never imagined that he would propose to her just weeks after their first meeting. "Marry me, Sarah," he had said, his voice low and sincere. "I can help your family. I can give you everything you need." At first, she had hesitated. The idea of marrying a stranger felt foreign and frightening. But as she looked into Ethan's eyes, she saw a glimmer of hope. This was her chance to save her family. With a heavy heart, she agreed, knowing that her sacrifice could bring them the stability they desperately needed. The wedding day arrived, and Sarah stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her veil. She wore a simple yet elegant gown, but her heart was heavy. She felt a mix of excitement and dread. As she walked down the aisle, she caught glimpses of her family in the crowd, their faces filled with hope. This was for them, she reminded herself. Ethan stood at the altar, looking dashing in his tailored suit. He smiled at her, and for a moment, Sarah felt a flicker of warmth. Perhaps this could work. Perhaps love would grow in time. But as the ceremony progressed, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. After exchanging vows, they were pronounced husband and wife. The crowd erupted in applause, but Sarah felt a knot in her stomach. She had made a choice, and now she had to live with it. As they walked down the aisle together, hand in hand, she couldn't help but wonder what lay ahead. The reception was a lavish affair, filled with laughter, music, and dancing. Ethan was the perfect host, charming everyone with his wit and charisma. But as the night wore on, Sarah began to feel increasingly isolated. She was surrounded by people, yet she felt utterly alone. Ethan was busy mingling with guests, and Sarah found herself standing at the edge of the dance floor, watching as couples twirled and laughed. She felt like an outsider in her own life. The weight of her decision pressed down on her, and she couldn't shake the feeling that she had entered a world she didn't belong to. As the evening progressed, Sarah noticed a group of Ethan's friends whispering and glancing in her direction. She felt a pang of insecurity. Were they judging her? Did they know the truth about her marriage? "Sarah, come dance with me," Ethan called, pulling her from her thoughts. He took her hand and led her to the center of the dance floor. As they swayed to the music, she tried to focus on the moment, but her mind was racing. "Are you happy?" Ethan asked, his voice low. Of course, she replied, forcing a smile. But deep down, she felt a sense of unease. As the night wore on, Sarah tried to shake off her unease. The reception was beautiful, filled with laughter and joy. But she felt like a stranger in her own life. Ethan was charming and attentive, but there was a distance between them that she couldn't quite bridge. She had agreed to this marriage to save her family, but she couldn't help but wonder if she had made a mistake. After the reception, they left for their honeymoon, a luxurious getaway to a private villa in the Caribbean. The moment they arrived, Sarah was struck by the beauty of the place. Crystal clear waters, white sandy beaches, and a stunning sunset painted the sky in hues of orange and pink. For a moment, she felt a flicker of excitement. Perhaps this was the fresh start she needed. Ethan was attentive and sweet during their first few days. He took her out for romantic dinners, planned adventurous excursions, and showered her with gifts. But as the days passed, Sarah began to notice strange things about him. He would receive phone calls late at night, speaking in hushed tones. When she asked about it, he would brush it off, saying it was work-related. "Don't worry, Sarah. I'll explain everything soon," he promised, but the vague reassurance did little to ease her mind. One evening, while Ethan was in the shower, Sarah decided to explore the villa. She wandered through the beautifully decorated rooms, admiring the artwork and furnishings. As she entered his study, she noticed a large desk covered in papers. Curiosity piqued, she began to sift through them. What she found left her breathless. The documents were financial statements, contracts, and business plans, each one revealing the extent of Ethan's wealth. He wasn't just a wealthy man, he was a billionaire with investments in various industries, from technology to real estate. But it wasn't just the money that shocked her. There were also papers detailing a charity foundation he had established, aimed at helping families in need. As she read through the documents, she felt a mix of admiration and confusion. Why hadn't he told her any of this? Just then, Ethan walked in, towel wrapped around his waist, and caught her in the act. "What are you doing?" he asked, his voice a mix of surprise and concern. "I was just looking around," she stammered, trying to hide the papers behind her back. Ethan's expression shifted, and for a moment she saw a flicker of something. Was it anger? "You shouldn't go through my things, Sarah. It's not appropriate." The tension in the room thickened, and Sarah felt her heart race. "I didn't mean to invade your privacy. I just wanted to understand you better." Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I know it's a lot to take in. I promise I'll explain everything, but right now, let's just enjoy our time together." Sarah nodded, but the unease lingered. As the days passed, she found herself torn between the man she was married to and the secrets he kept. She wanted to trust him, but the lack of transparency made it difficult. One night, as they sat on the beach watching the stars, Sarah decided to confront him. "Ethan, I need to know more about you. I feel like there's so much you're not telling me." He looked at her, his expression serious. "I promise, Sarah, I'll share everything with you soon. Just give me time." But time was something she was running out of. The more she learned about Ethan's wealth, the more questions she had. Why had he chosen to marry her? Was it truly to help her family, or was there another motive? As their honeymoon came to an end, Sarah felt a growing sense of dread. She had entered this marriage with the hope of saving her family, but now she was beginning to feel trapped in a web of secrets. Returning home, Sarah tried to settle into her new life as Ethan's wife. He showered her with gifts and attention, but the underlying tension remained. She felt like she was living in a fairy tale, but one that was slowly turning into a nightmare. One evening, while Ethan was out for a business meeting, Sarah decided to do some digging. She went through his belongings, searching for answers. In his closet, she found a hidden compartment in the back of a drawer. Inside were more documents. This time, they were legal papers related to a previous marriage. Her heart sank as she read through the details. Ethan had been married before, and the divorce had been messy. There were allegations of infidelity and financial disputes. The realization hit her like a ton of bricks. Had she become a pawn of a game she didn't fully understand? The weight of the revelation pressed down on her, and she felt a wave of nausea wash over her. When Ethan returned home, Sarah confronted him. "You lied to me, Ethan. You were married before, and you didn't tell me." Her voice trembled with a mix of anger and betrayal. Ethan's expression shifted from surprise to concern. "Sarah, I can explain. It was a complicated situation, and I didn't want to burden you with my past." "Burden me? You think keeping secrets is protecting me?" she shot back, her heart racing. "What else are you hiding?" He took a deep breath, running a hand through his hair. "I didn't want to scare you away. I thought we could build something together before I revealed everything." "Build what? A life based on lies?" Sarah felt tears prick at her eyes. "I agreed to marry you to save my family, but now I feel like I'm losing myself in the process." Ethan stepped closer, his voice softening. "I never meant to hurt you. I thought if I could show you my world, you'd understand why I made the choices I did. I wanted to protect you from my past." "Protect me? Or control me?" she challenged, her voice rising. "I need to know the truth, Ethan. Who are you really?" He hesitated, and for a moment Sarah saw a flicker of vulnerability in his eyes. "I am a man who made mistakes, Sarah. I was young and foolish, and I let my wealth consume me. I thought marrying you would be a fresh start, a chance to do things right." "Right for whom?" she asked, her heart aching. "For you or for me?" Ethan looked away, and in that moment, Sarah realized that the man she had married was not the man she thought he was. The charming billionaire had a past that haunted him, and she was caught in the crossfire. "I need time to think," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She turned away, feeling the weight of her decision crashing down on her. The next few days were filled with tension. Sarah felt like she was living in a fog, unsure of what to do next. She loved her family, and she had sacrificed so much for them, but at what cost? One evening, as she sat alone in their lavish living room, she received a phone call from her mother. "Sarah, we need to talk. Your father's health is declining, and we're struggling to keep up with the bills. We need your help." The words hit her like a punch to the gut. She had married Ethan to save her family, but now she felt more lost than ever. "I'm trying, Mom. I'm doing everything I can," she replied, her voice trembling. "Just be careful, sweetheart. We love you," her mother said before hanging up. As Sarah hung up the phone, she felt a surge of determination. She needed to take control of her life. She couldn't let Ethan's secrets dictate her future. That night, she made a decision. She would confront Ethan one last time and demand the truth. She needed to know if their marriage was built on a foundation of love or manipulation. When Ethan returned home, Sarah was waiting for him. "We need to talk," she said, her voice steady. "About what?" he asked, his expression guarded. "About us. About your past. I need to know everything, Ethan. No more secrets." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I've been trying to protect you, Sarah. I didn't want to scare you away." "Scare me away? You're already doing that by keeping me in the dark. I deserve to know who I married," she insisted. Ethan looked at her, his eyes filled with a mix of regret and determination. "Okay, I'll tell you everything." As they sat down together, Ethan began to share his story. He spoke of his previous marriage, the mistakes he had made, and the lessons he had learned. He revealed the pain of losing his first love and how it had shaped him into the man he was today. I thought I could start fresh with you, Sarah. I thought I could be the man you needed, he admitted, his voice filled with emotion. But I see now that I was wrong. I should have been honest from the beginning. Sarah listened intently, her heart aching for the man sitting before her. She could see the vulnerability in his eyes, the weight of his past pressing down on him, but she also felt a sense of betrayal. You should have trusted me, Ethan. I could have handled the truth. I know, he replied, his voice heavy with regret. I thought I was protecting you, but I see now that I was only protecting myself. I didn't want to lose you before we even had a chance to build something real. Sarah felt a mix of emotions swirling within her. She wanted to believe him, to trust that the man sitting before her was genuine. But the scars of betrayal were deep, and she couldn't ignore the doubts that lingered in her mind. Ethan, I need to know if you truly want this marriage, if you want me, or if I'm just a way to escape your past. Ethan reached for her hand, his grip firm yet gentle. I want you, Sarah. I've never wanted anyone more. You're not just a way to escape. You're my future. I see a life with you, one filled with love and honesty. But I understand if you need time to process everything. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes as she searched his face for the truth. I want to believe you, but I can't ignore the fact that I agreed to this marriage under false pretenses. I need to know that you're committed to being open with me from now on. I promise, he said, his voice earnest. No more secrets. I'll share everything with you, and together we can face whatever comes our way. As they sat together, the weight of their conversation hung in the air. Sarah felt a flicker of hope ignite within her. Perhaps this was the turning point they needed. Perhaps they could rebuild their relationship on a foundation of trust and honesty. But just as she began to feel optimistic, her phone buzzed on the table. It was a text from her mother, and as she read it, her heart sank. Sarah, we need you to come home. Your father is in the hospital. It's serious. Panic surged through her. Ethan, I have to go. My dad is in the hospital, she said, her voice trembling. Let's go together, he offered, his expression shifting to concern. I'll support you through this. No, I need to handle this on my own, she replied, feeling a mix of fear and determination. I'll call you when I know more. As she rushed out the door, Sarah felt a whirlwind of emotions. She was torn between her commitment to her family and her desire to make her marriage work. The uncertainty of her father's health weighed heavily on her heart, and she couldn't shake the feeling that her life was spiraling out of control. When Sarah arrived at the hospital, the sterile smell of antiseptic filled her nostrils, and the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Her heart raced as she rushed to the waiting room where her mother sat, her face pale and drawn. "Mom!" Sarah exclaimed, wrapping her arms around her mother. "What happened?" Her mother's eyes were filled with tears. "Your father collapsed at work. The doctors are running tests, but they're worried about his heart." The news hit Sarah like a punch to the gut. She felt a wave of nausea wash over her. "I'm here now. We'll get through this together," she reassured her mother, though her own heart was heavy with fear. As they waited for news, Sarah's mind raced. She thought about Ethan and the promise he had made to be honest with her. She wanted to believe that they could build a life together, but the uncertainty of her father's health loomed large. Hours passed, and finally, a doctor emerged from the hallway. "Are you the family of Mr. Thompson?" he asked, looking at them with a serious expression. "Yes, that's my dad," Sarah replied, her heart pounding. "I'm afraid we have some concerning news. Your father has a serious heart condition, and we need to discuss treatment options," the doctor said, his tone grave. Sarah felt her world tilt on its axis. "What does that mean? Will he be okay?" she asked, her voice trembling. The doctor explained the situation, outlining the risks and the necessary procedures. As he spoke, Sarah felt a sense of helplessness wash over her. She had always been the one to hold her family together, but now she felt like she was losing control. After the doctor left, Sarah and her mother sat in silence, the weight of the news hanging heavily between them. "We need to be strong for your father," her mother said, wiping her tears. "He needs us now more than ever." "I know," Sarah replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'll do whatever it takes to help him." As the days passed, Sarah spent every moment at the hospital, supporting her father and helping her mother navigate the overwhelming emotions that came with her father's health crisis. The hospital became a second home, filled with the sounds of beeping machines and hushed conversations. Each day brought new challenges, but Sarah remained steadfast, determined to be the rock her family needed. During this time, Ethan reached out frequently, offering his support from a distance. He sent flowers, called to check in, and even arranged for meals to be delivered to her mother. But Sarah felt conflicted. While she appreciated his gestures, she couldn't shake the feeling that their relationship was still fragile. She needed to focus on her family, and the thought of returning to their complicated marriage felt daunting. One evening, after a long day at the hospital, Sarah received a text from Ethan. "I'm here for you, Sarah. Whenever you're ready, I'll be waiting." The message stirred something within her. She realized that despite the turmoil, Ethan genuinely cared for her. He had made mistakes, but he was also trying to change. As her father's condition stabilized, Sarah found a moment of clarity. She needed to confront her feelings and decide what she truly wanted. After a long day at the hospital, she finally mustered the courage to call Ethan. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "Of course. I'll come over," he replied, his tone warm and reassuring. When Ethan arrived, Sarah led him to the living room. The atmosphere was tense, but she felt a sense of determination. "I've been thinking a lot about us," she began, her heart racing. "About what it means to be married and what I need from you." Ethan nodded, his expression serious. "I'm ready to listen. I want to be the husband you deserve." "I need honesty, Ethan. I need to know that I can trust you completely," she said, her voice firm. "I can't go back to a life of secrets." "I promise no more secrets," he replied, his eyes earnest. "I want to build a future with you, one that's based on trust and love. I've learned from my past, and I want to be better for you." As they talked, Sarah felt the walls she had built around her heart begin to crumble. She realized that while their marriage had started under unusual circumstances, it didn't have to define their future. They could create a new narrative together, one filled with honesty and understanding. "I want to give us a chance," she said, her voice softening. "But I need time. I need to heal from everything that's happened." Ethan reached for her hand, his grip warm and reassuring. "Take all the time you need. I'll be here waiting for you." In that moment, Sarah felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps they could navigate this journey together, learning from their pasts and building a future filled with love and trust. As the weeks passed, Sarah's father underwent treatment and the family rallied around him. The experience brought them closer together, and Sarah found strength in her family's resilience. She learned to appreciate the small moments, the laughter shared over hospital meals, the quiet conversations in the waiting room, and the love that bound them together. Ethan remained a constant presence in her life, respecting her need for space while also offering support. He would visit occasionally, bringing her favorite snacks and flowers, always ready to lend a listening ear. Slowly, Sarah began to open up to him, sharing her fears and dreams, and in return, he shared more about his life, his ambitions, and the lessons he had learned from his past. One evening, as they sat on the porch of her family home, watching the sunset, Sarah turned to Ethan. "I've realized that life is unpredictable, We can't control everything, but we can choose how we respond to it. Ethan nodded, his gaze steady. You're right. I want to be someone you can rely on, someone who supports you through thick and thin. I want that too, she replied, her heart swelling with emotion. I want to build a life with you, but it has to be built on trust and honesty. I promise, he said, his voice filled with sincerity. I'll do everything I can to earn your trust. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Sarah felt a sense of peace wash over her. She had faced her fears, confronted the truth, and emerged stronger. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but she was ready to embrace it, hand in hand with Ethan. As Sarah and Ethan began to navigate their new relationship, they faced challenges, but they also found joy in the little things. They took walks together, shared meals, and spent time with her family, creating a bond that grew stronger with each passing day. Sarah realized that love was not just about grand gestures, it was about the everyday moments that built a life together. One afternoon, as they sat in the park watching children play and families enjoy picnics, Sarah turned to Ethan. You know, I've been thinking about how we can give back. Your charity foundation, maybe we could work on a project together. Ethan's eyes lit up. That's a great idea. I've always wanted to do more community outreach, but I've been so focused on my business. We could organize a fundraiser or a community event to help families in need, just like yours. Sarah felt a surge of excitement. Yes, we could involve local businesses, get the community engaged, and really make a difference. It would be a way for us to connect and show that we're committed to helping others. Ethan nodded enthusiastically. Let's start planning. We can brainstorm ideas and reach out to people who might want to help. As they began to discuss their plans, Sarah felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was more than just a project. It was a way to solidify their partnership and demonstrate their commitment to each other and their community. Over the next few weeks, they worked tirelessly to organize the event. They reached out to local businesses for sponsorships, enlisted volunteers, and spread the word through social media. The excitement in the community was palpable, and Sarah felt a sense of pride in what they were building together. On the day of the event, the park was filled with laughter, music, and the smell of delicious food. Families gathered to enjoy games, activities, and entertainment. Sarah and Ethan moved through the crowd, greeting people and sharing their vision for the future. As the sun began to set, they took a moment to step back and admire the scene. We did this, Sarah said, her heart swelling with joy. We brought the community together. Ethan smiled, wrapping his arm around her. And we did it together. This is just the beginning, Sarah. We can accomplish so much more. In that moment, Sarah realized that their journey was not just about overcoming obstacles. It was about creating a life filled with purpose and love. They had faced challenges, but they had also found strength in each other. As the event came to a close, Sarah took a deep breath, feeling a sense of fulfillment wash over her. She had chosen to embrace her life, to take control of her destiny, and to build a future with Ethan, one that was rooted in trust, honesty, and a shared commitment to making a difference. As the evening drew to a close, Sarah and Ethan stood together watching the last of the guests leave the park. The laughter and joy of the day lingered in the air, and Sarah felt a sense of peace settle within her. "Thank you for believing in us," she said softly, turning to Ethan. "This day means more to me than you know." Ethan smiled, his eyes filled with warmth. "I believe in us, Sarah. We've come so far, and I'm excited for what the future holds." With their hands intertwined, they walked away from the park, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. They had learned that love was not just about the perfect moments. It was about navigating the imperfect ones together. As they stepped into the future, Sarah felt a renewed sense of hope. She had chosen to embrace her life, her family, and her love for Ethan. Together, they would build a life filled with purpose, love, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow.